Right. So, I've been having an idea for quite a long time, and the idea is basically I've been a Star Wars fan uh, for a long time, uh, since I was a kid. Like most people who started getting into Star Wars, it was when I was a kid. Uh, I'm only 25 years old, so obviously I didn't see the original trilogy in cinemas or anything, but my parents did, and I was raised watching uh, the VHS tapes of the original trilogy. They were films that I really loved. Whenever they were on the TV, I would always watch them. One would always record them for me, and with the new Star Wars content coming out, um, I had a similar experience to a lot of Star Wars fans, which is that they're pretty disappointed in general with the new Star Wars stuff. I didn't like it like I liked the original Legends continuity, and pretty much didn't like any of it for the most part until the Mandalorian. And I think the Mandalorian has kind of forced me to re-examine whether or not my love of the Legends continuity was genuine or if it was biased, rose tinted glasses, if it was simply because I was really into the Legends continuity when I was a kid. And that led me to another thought, which was that, I personally loved the Star Wars novels, the Legends novels. That is, specifically the Rogue Squadron books, the obviously the Thrawn trilogy, which I have up there, and the New Jedi Order books, which followed. I did read some of the other books, some of the standalone novels. I read one of the Han Solo books, I think, and I read some of the KOTOR books later on. Um, and as a kid, I really loved KOTOR 2 and KOTOR 1, two games that I really loved. Now, I haven't. I mean, I can stand up now and say, if someone who loves KOTOR 1 and 2, and I played them recently, and they are still as amazing as they ever were. And they were still the backbone of turning the Jedi and Sith as two factions within the world of Star Wars into actually nuanced, interesting groups that weren't just dark side bad, red lightsaber bad, the Jedi good, green and blue lightsabers good, which is pretty much up until KOTOR the depth that existed with those two factions until KOTOR. Obviously, the writers of the KOTOR games, they created the Sith and Jedi codes, which were the backbone from that point onwards for creating this interesting idea that maybe the Jedi aren't 100% right, and certainly the Sith aren't right. Um, they're definitely not the good guys. Nobody would argue that the Sith are right or that they're good, but they are definitely a symptom of the failures of the Jedi and generally how they treat Padawan, how they're like raised. So I can't say for sure, apart from the KOTOR games, that Legends was as amazing as I remember it being. And so this brings me back to this thought I've had for a long time, which is that I should really reread the Legends books, and there's a lot of them. But by God, there's a lot of them, and I'm not going to read all of them. There's really no reason to. Quite frankly, not from to my knowledge, not all of the Legends novels are worth reading. Um, and I certainly wouldn't have the time to, even if I wanted to. But what I am going to do is I'm going to reread the Legends novels that I did read when I was younger that I remembered loving. And I'm going to kind of make a diary of my experience of rereading these books and kind of re-engaging with the Legends continuity. Um, I'll make a separate video or like a vlog kind of thing or a diary kind of thing about the things that I liked and disliked about the new Star Wars continuity versus Legends. Problems I have with the new stuff are many, but I do try to understand that comparing the new continuity to Legends is kind of like comparing, you know, the new Disney continuity. People have to understand is still in its infancy, and if you want to fairly compare the new Star Wars continuity to the to Legends, you would really only be able to compare the new stuff to the movies and Dark Empire, really, if you were going to be fair. And let's be honest, most people didn't like Dark Empire, and you're lying to yourself if you think that Legends didn't have an awkward teething period, because it definitely did have a period where it was not all good, where there were a lot of inconsistencies, where, you know, there are a lot of things that could have been done better. But I guess there is the argument that back then, a great expansive universe of uh, with interconnecting stories of different mediums like books, games, etc., movies, comics had never really been done before. I mean, yeah, there's the Lord of the Rings, which had its big universe and everything, but it's all done through books, um, and by one guy. It's a lot easier to be consistent when it's one guy and the same medium. And the reality is that yeah, Legends did have an awkward teething period where it was a bit all over the place, and Dark Empire was that period. And the games that came out around it, the Dark Forces games, obviously gave us Kato, who went on to be one of the most beloved and most interesting Star Wars characters in Legends. But to begin with, he was kind of a cartoonish uh, meme of a character. If you watch the watch the cutscenes from the Dark Empire games, I don't think many people would say he was necessarily anything other than a cartoony uh, main character. Same for the villains; they're just kind of laughable, even by the comparison of the bad villains and the new Stars continuity. So, you know, whether or not the new Stars continuity will be good overall after all of the new shows they have slated to come out, nobody can really say. Um, I think certainly pretty much among Star Wars fans, it's mostly accepted that the new films are not good. I will go into my own opinion on a kind of. Personally had a very different experience with the new Star Wars films than I think a lot of Star Wars fans who were originally big fans of Legends did, and I'll briefly go over that now instead of having to put it into a whole video of its own. But basically, when as a Star Wars fan, Legends fan at the time, you have to understand that when Force Awakens was announced, Star Wars was kind of going through a stagnant period. Now I don't know why this is personally. Maybe it's to do with the IP changing hands or whatever. But you have to understand that there weren't a lot of books coming out, not a lot of comics. Hadn't had many games for a couple of years because in like the 2012 ish period, we had a lot of good Star Wars games. A lot of them coming out. Star Wars games were coming out on the regular, and they were usually good. Um, and also books. We had a lot of Star Wars books coming out, and it kind of stagnated after that period for a little bit until The Force Awakens came out, and obviously they decanonized everything in Legends. Now, most people's reaction to the decanonization with Legends was slamming their fists on the table, going, "What the fuck? This is a travesty. This is terrible." I understand that viewpoint. I do. Um, but for me, it was mostly a case of, well, they weren't doing anything really at the time that was really interesting or great, so it's not really a big loss. I mean, the fucking New Jedi Order books had finished, and that was basically and I suppose there was the stuff that followed on from that. But let's be honest, the everything after them was just kind of, and well, I suppose there was other important stuff after that, but the kind of Luke story had kind of ended by that point. Most of the stuff that was coming out around that period was focusing on um, Skywalker's later down the lineage. That although some of them were pretty cool, some of the content around that was pretty cool. In general, people weren't as invested in it, and people were dropping off because Luke and obviously Leia and Leia and Han's kids were really the backbone of Star Wars from that point on, and basically the story is no longer following them. Right. So I do want to clarify something that I said in this clip that was not correct, and this is a mixture because it was stupid o'clock in the morning, and because I didn't plan it, and because kind of ties into the very reason I want to do this whole thing in the first place, which is that my memory of Legends is very foggy, and this is an example of how. So I've started, by this point that I'm recording this, I've started reading the Bane trilogy, and I'm on to the second book. I'll be making a video about my thoughts on the first book soon. Um, but at the start of these books, it has a very handy little continuity timeline for you, and I said the Star Wars started to stagnate around when the New Jedi Order books finished. And what I actually meant by that was the anything after the New Jedi Order books, because the New Jedi Order books technically are just one series, but there is also the Darkness trilogy and the Legacy of the Force, which for some reason my child brain melded them all together into one series and assumed they were all called the New Jedi Order books. But I haven't read these books for a long time, so when I am talking about the New Jedi Order books finishing, I'm technically talking about the end of the Legacy of the Force books, which is obviously about Jason Solo's fall to the dark side, and is kind of one of the most beloved parts of Star Wars Legends continuity, and he's obviously one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars continuity. Um, so I understand that would probably have annoyed a lot of people if I hadn't clarified what I was saying. Um, I won't do many of these bits where I just jump in and clarify something, because quite frankly, it's just gonna pad out an already very long rambly video. But yeah, that's what I meant. I meant anything from basically anything after the Legacy of the Force books. Um, and of course, I included the Darkness trilogy in that, just the New Jedi Order abbreviation. What I meant at the time was just anything after that, and then when they finished, um, which is, in my opinion, which was, I think, roughly about 2008. Let me just check that. I've got it written down. Yeah, so that was around 2008. So when I'm talking about stars stagnating, in my opinion, I'm talking about between 2008 and 2015, which is when The Force Awakens came out. Now, of course, in my opinion, the only real good stuff that Star Wars was producing at this time, of course, it was producing a lot of stuff, and I probably wasn't aware of some of the good stuff, was the Cade, I think it was Cade Solo, was it Cade? Can't remember his name. Not Solo, Skywalker, who is like one of the, he's like 4 generations removed from Luke Skywalker, and it's about him and his story becoming a Sith, and then all I really remember about it is that he had the power that Anakin always wanted, which is to bring people back to life with the Force. I will reread it. I don't really remember it very well at all, to be honest with you. I kind of skim read the whole thing when I was younger. And the games. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying, in my opinion, it was stagnating. I'm sure people would disagree with me. Maybe I'm just misinformed, but that was basically my experience at the time as a Star Wars fan when I'm talking about why I was okay with the decanonization of Legends. So that's basically all I have to say about that. That's just a little clarification for you. Anyway, this will probably cut really awkwardly and really jarringly to the next section of the video, but I'm not really any good at video editing, so it is what it is. And my viewpoint at the time was, I'm not necessarily happy about them decanonizing Legends. But at the same time, everything that I liked about it was over and had finished and had wrapped up. So they're going to make more Star Wars stuff. Maybe it might be good. So I was pretty optimistic about it, to be honest. I thought, you know what? So what? The worst case scenario, in my opinion, not much was lost. Um, I'd kind of stopped following Star Wars by that point because the things that I cared about had stopped, but weren't being produced anymore. So I kind of dropped off, and then when The Force Awakens came out, I went to see it in the cinema. Like most Star Wars fans, I thought it was alright. That was my opinion. I actually enjoyed it. It was definitely a Disney film. It had a lot of that comedy in it, a lot of that slapstick humor that you kind of associate with like Pixar films, stuff like that. And I thought that was fine. Um, I thought injecting some more humor into Star Wars was something that the books did really well, and I think something that the new continuity, the Disney continuity, is actually doing alright. I think the introduction of levity to the seriousness actually heightens and enhances the serious scenes and the general seriousness. People aren't in real life. People aren't sad all the time. If you go and you look at the worst points in human history, like well, not in human history, but like general bad points in human history, like let's say like soldiers fighting in the trenches during in World War I, you're telling me they wouldn't be joking with each other all the time? Yes, they would. That's the reality. That's what humans are like when things get tough. That's what they do, and it just makes the characters seem more fun. I mean, sure, they shouldn't be silly all the time, but that's a whole other discussion. Overall, I thought the first one was alright. I had problems with it, but it wasn't terrible. The first, if you go back and watch the original trilogy and the sequel, I mean, let's not even get started on the prequel trilogy. Obviously, that's extremely contentious, but in general, I think it was an alright first film. I didn't love it, didn't dislike it either. Definitely wasn't in love with Ray or Finn. I thought they were okay. I think in comparison to the first Star Wars film, the first of both the trilogies, the main characters weren't really that fleshed out, then they were just okay. If you were really invested in Luke as a character after the first film, or you were really invested with, sorry, the fourth film, or you were really invested in Anakin after the Phantom Menace, let's be honest, you probably weren't. If people say the character they're invested in most after the Phantom Menace finished, most people would say Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon, obviously. Kind of hard to continue to be invested in Qui-Gon after that film, but you know what I mean. And most people after after A New Hope would probably say, oh, I don't know actually. I mean, I suppose I personally wouldn't say I was that invested in Luke. That let's be honest, after the first one. But it is what it is. Um, you know, I don't know. Anyway, there is definitely a debate to be had there, but I think in general, um, people weren't that invested in the characters at the end of the first film when they came out. Let's be real. That was something that came with the later films and with the later media, and let's uh, let's be real here. It's kind of hard to compare a trilogy at the beginning, so compared to the later on parts of a trilogy. So I think it's fair to say there was no reason to believe that by the end of the new trilogy, Finn wouldn't be a great character and Rey wouldn't be a great character. They certainly weren't in the first films. They were okay, and I would say that's a fair thing to say about Luke and about Anakin. To be fair, after the first two films of their trilogy, first films of their trilogies, and if at the time, if you're going to fairly compare them, I think it would be a bit harsh to say that it was a bad film. That's just my opinion. But obviously, the following films with the new trilogy were terrible. Um, whether 8 or 9 were worse is up in the air. In my opinion, 8 was worse because I think that they completely destroyed any possibility. Rian Johnson completely destroyed any possibility of there ever being a good ninth film. I think, quite frankly, it would have been a fucking miracle if someone had managed to pull a good sequel to that film out of their ass. And the damage was done, really, by that point. People say how terrible the new one was. I think, you know what? Considering what was left, what there was to work with, they were polishing a turd, and visually that film was pretty amazing. Apart from that, not much to say, is there? Um, it is what it is. But that was my personal experience with the new Legends continuity. The new I keep saying Legends, the new Disney continuity. Was I was hopeful for it to be good, and unfortunately I was disappointed. However, however, I say after the films I completely dropped off of Star Wars for a while. Um, I replayed the KOTOR games every now and then, but that's it really. I played a bit of the tabletop RPG. But that's it. That was all my interaction with I played Force Unleashed a couple of times. Um probably played Battlefront. I played the games. I mean, I still liked Star Wars. I just didn't like the new stuff, and I just wasn't interested in engaging with it. And that wasn't until the Mandalorian happened. I'll be honest. I was not interested in the Mandalorian when it first came out. I had absolutely zero interest in it until um one of my friends recommended it. He said you've got to go watch it. It's really good. Um, and this is one of the friend who actually originally borrowed. Um, I think it was the first Star Wars book I read, which was I think the first book in the Darth Bane trilogy, which is what kind of got me hooked on the Star Wars books. And I can't actually remember, to be honest, it's so long ago which one it was. It's like that or one of the Rogue Squadron books. I don't remember, but I remember it being this bad old paperback, and I borrowed it, and I read that thing front to back 3 times before I get it back. I loved it. Um, I was pretty young. I was like 12, but anyway, um, I I would say that truth is, lost my train of thought. Damn, I was hoping I wouldn't have to edit this video. I'm gonna have to, aren't I? Anyway, what was I even saying? Shit, doing this is harder than people make it look. Um, yeah, sorry. I was saying I dropped off Star Wars. That's what I was saying. Right. So yeah, I dropped off into the Mandalorian. Like I said, my friend recommended it to me. And this is someone whose opinion I trusted. Right, his opinion I knew their things they liked aligned with mine. So I watched the Mandalorian. I think the Mandalorian is great. I think it definitely has problems. I won't go into those. I think, quite frankly, the writing issues of the Mandalorian have been heavily documented all over the internet. A lot of it's hard to argue with. But nonetheless, I think it's pretty good overall. Um, but it's one of the only things I liked for New Stars continuity I could think of, apart from the Battlefront game, which obviously started off terrible, but it's pretty good. But I only played it when it was free on Origin. I had a blast with it, to be fair. But the uh, the Mandalorian kind of kick-started an interest in me, an interest to re-engage with the new Star Wars, which I did. Actually, I did. I didn't really want to that much, but I just can't. One of my friends, I have a friend who doesn't know anything about Legends, has never read any of the Legends stuff, only really liked the films, which is a lot of most Star Wars fans, let's be honest. Um, and he was really into the uh the new Star Wars, so he just kind of guided me a bit to watch the Clone Wars because he loves the Clone Wars TV show. I think I have a bit of probably an unpopular opinion on the Clone Wars because it's well loved. Um, Now I watched the whole thing, every episode, pretty much. Towards the end, I started skipping stuff. I'll be honest with you. Um, that was about the fourth season. I started skipping things. Now, there's a lot of things that people recommend to say to you about the Clone Wars cartoon, and the main things that stand out to me are it makes Anakin's character arc in the third film better. Because obviously, I'm sorry, but his character arc in that film is very much a character 180, and it's not very well done. It's not very well presented. From a conceptual standpoint, obviously the prequel trilogy is brilliant. It's just that it was not well. This I don't need to go into this. This is obviously everyone knows about this by now. Everyone knows that it wasn't well directed, and that's basically the issue, right? It's overacted. It's not well directed, as a bunch of other issues. But these are well documented. People talk about it all the time. This is well known. I need to go into this. Um, but basically, the main argument that I kept seeing was it shows Anakin's slow descent to the dark side, and that sounded really interesting to me. So I watched it. I strongly disagree with this. I strongly disagree with this. I watched the whole show. For a start, Anakin isn't even in half the episodes. Secondly, most of the episodes are fucking terrible. I'm sorry, up until the last two seasons of the Clone Wars, which are, by the way, I will say now, the last two seasons of the Clone Wars are phenomenal, and you should watch them. Especially the last season of the Clone Wars, which is fucking amazing and brilliant. Especially the last episode of it is fucking incredible. But the rest of it, seasons 1 to 5, absolutely shit. I'm sorry, most of it was just unbearably boring. It was obviously a kid's show, and what felt like it happened was towards the end. Obviously, they were told they were getting cancelled. They probably felt, oh, we actually need to make a good show now, or we're going to get cancelled. So they actually started to make good content, actually thinking about the writing and things like that. The first, the first 5 seasons is a kid's show. The fifth season is definitely better than the 1 to 4, but it's still not great. And the last 2 seasons are brilliant. So, but that's the main point that I don't agree with. And it shows Anakin's slow descent to the dark side. That is not true. He does not slowly descend to the dark side. The argument that he slowly descends to the dark side is on the basis that his actions slowly get worse in terms of like there's like a rising action that you can see in terms of his immoral actions, his willingness to accept anything, to win the war. I just don't disagree with it. I just don't agree with this. Okay, I think you can quite clearly see this isn't true if you go back and you watch it with that in mind. Because I watched the whole show with that in mind. And one of the worst things Anakin does in the whole show, he does right at the start. And that is, he tortures a Genosian to get information out of him. Fucking tortures a guy. Like, force chokes the guy. It's pretty heavily implied he kills him. We don't know whether he did or not, but it's pretty heavily implied he did. The guy is, like, unarmed, can't do anything to defend himself, and he just doesn't want to talk. But Anakin, he tortures that guy, and in my opinion, torture is like pretty fucking high on the immorality scale. It's pretty bad, and I don't think Anakin really does anything that bad for a long time in the show. So in my opinion, if you actually watch it, that like if that's how you do it, if that's how you're considering it, he gives into the dark side more in that one scene than he does for the majority of the show, and at the end it just spikes. So I don't agree that there's this slow character arc of him slowly descending into the dark side that's so well done. No, that's well done in a lot of Star Wars. Well, a lot of Star Wars literature and in a lot of the books, and in a lot of other things, a lot of the games and stuff. But that is not well done in the Clone Wars. I strongly disagree with that. So overall, the Clone Wars I thought was pretty crap. apart from the last two seasons, which to me, the quality difference is so different that I can barely even see them as the same show. They're so divorced from one another that I can barely comprehend they're even from the same creators, honestly. Um, but that's basically I tried to watch Rebels and I'm sorry, but I couldn't. It was just the first season at least was the Clone Wars, but so much worse. Um, I just can't get into it. I did go and watch the best, like all the important scenes that you need to know. I've obviously seen the Ahsoka and Vader scenes and stuff like that. Um, again, I just have there's a lot of problems I have with that. I think it's just might make a different video on that, but um, overall, I think that's like Dark Empire levels of bad. A lot of it, and same with the Clone Wars. I go into some of my issues with the Clone Wars and some of the arcs that are really well loved, like the Umbara arc, which in my opinion is terrible. And I'll go into why I think it's terrible at some point. I'll probably make a video about all these separate issues I have with all these separate shows. Um, but for now, this is just like an intro video, like an overview video. This is like Star Wars Legends Reread or Reimmersion 1. I don't know what I'll call it yet. Obviously, as you can tell, I'm not a YouTuber. I'm just a guy in his room with a shitty webcam. Um, Not even got a good mic. My audio quality is probably terrible. Nobody will probably watch this. But mostly I'm recording this for myself. I want to remember this because I'm going to be real with you. If I read these Legends novels again, I've got the first one I'm going to read, right? Well, I don't actually. I did have it. I've just finished reading um, The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, which is one of my favorite series of books ever. Just finished Battleground, which I was way behind on reading. Um, and I've kind of burnt myself out by just burning through 17 books. So I need something new to read on my breaks at work and in the evening to chill out before I can sleep. It's kind of what I'm doing here. I haven't finished work until midnight tonight, and I kind of need to wind down a bit. So this is what I'm kind of doing. I really want to re-examine whether the Legends continuity was as good as I remember. Now, of course, I do have to have a disclaimer here. This is not going to be the Legends continuity, like in overall. Obviously, I'm not reading 270 books, hundreds of comics, God knows how many radio dramas, adverts, shorts, all that stuff. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to read everything that follows directly on from the movies, continues Luke's and his offspring story, all the important stuff that, in my opinion, the Legends books felt like the true sequels, two sequel movies. The Yuzong Vong War felt like, well, actually, I'd say the Thrawn trilogy felt like the third, the third movie trilogy that we really needed, and I'll probably go into my opinion on what the best parts of Star Wars Legends are overall in a separate video or something maybe. I'll shortly go over it here, but it's just a little bit. Um, I'll kind of contextualize this with my partner, my girlfriend. She'd never watched Star Wars before. The films. I think she'd watched like one or two of them like when she was a kid, but she doesn't really remember them. I rewatched them. And obviously, what she'd heard from me is that the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy is the best. Prequel trilogy is alright, if you don't think about it too much, and then the sequel trilogy, we didn't even watch it. I'll be honest with you. She had no interest in watching it. She'd heard so much bad stuff about it. She didn't even want to watch it, so we didn't. Um, but when we watched them, she had a unique outlook, which was kind of free of rose-tinted glasses nostalgia, and it kind of reframed how I thought about the films. And that is that The original trilogy is not as good as she expected it to be. She was disappointed with it because everyone always goes on about how amazing the original trilogy is. She liked them, but she didn't think they were amazing. That's important to be aware of. And then when we watched the prequel films, they were way better than she expected them to be because everyone always shits on them. I think this is kind of. I think that's she's kind of right. Now I think about it. Um, I as much as I love the original trilogy, I do think it is overrated. Um, a little bit, and I do think after watching the prequel trilogy, I wouldn't say it's underrated because there are still loads of people who really love those films. Um, and they do make an important. They are important to the Star Wars continuity overall, but they definitely probably I think I wouldn't say they're better than people think they are, but I think people let their flaws from a technical perspective, from a critical perspective, undermine their enjoyment. Now, sure, some parts of the prequel trilogy are so unbearably bad. Um, for me, the biggest part is in the second film where they go to Geonosis and they're like going through the factory, and it's just there's no reason it should be in the film. Just cut it out. Just get rid of it. Cut that shit out. Fucking like the second film is like good to start off with. Interesting with the whole like assassination of Padme attempt. It's kind of interesting, and then it's just like oh, slice of life shit, like from a slice of life anime that's overacted and poorly directed, and then it jumps to the. You know what? I'm not going to go into this. I'm gonna skip this. Anyway, I kind of agree that now that I've rewatched them, it's kind of made me realize this is going to upset a lot of people when I say this. I think that the films are the worst part of Star Wars. They're where it began, and they deserve all the credit for that. And George Lucas deserves the credit for being the visionary he was at the time, for creating, for sparking one of the, well, I'm not going to say one of the best sci-fi was settings or anything because that's subjective, but definitely one of the most loved sci-fi IPs of all time, and he deserves all the credit for that. He really does. But the people who really brought Star Wars to life were the creators who came after him in the Legends continuity. For me, the creators of the KOTOR games for turning what was otherwise a good versus bad situation, guys who use lightning, guys who don't situation, from a world building perspective, to two nuanced, interesting factions that have realistic political goals, aims, and conflicts. And then also who are the writers that went on to write a lot of the Legends books for fleshing out the Force and making it interesting and nuanced. Because the Force, if you just watch the films, is a Deus Ex Machina. It's it simply exists to drive the plot forward. Whereas with the Legends continuity, it became a living, breathing part of the world that becomes one of the most interesting parts of it. Whereas in the films, that really isn't the case. The Force is just a way for them to use cool powers. That's it. Um, it's actually more of a crutch than anything. It's actually, in my opinion, more of a negative than anything overall. Whereas in Legends, the Force becomes a complicated, complex religion with different ideologies. Now remember that the Sith and the Jedi are not the only Force ideologies in Legends. This is something that is massively, in my opinion, is one of the biggest problems with the new continuity, and that is that the Jedi exist and the Sith exist. That's basically it. in Legends you have so many Force orders. There's the Matukai. There's obviously the Night Sisters, which were already a thing. By the way, I know a lot of people like go crazy about them in New Legends, but in my opinion, they are just a worse version in the new canon. But in my opinion, they're just a worse version of what they were like in Legends. Even though they are still cool. If you ignore the fact that Mother Tarzan gets beaten by Jar Jar Binks. But there are issues there with the new continuity that are just silly and hard to take seriously at all. But then there's other like other Force Orders. There's just so many I can't even remember their names. And they do turn up in the Yuuzhan Vong War, and they're interesting, and they have nuanced, different views on the Force. Um, and it doesn't it the books really make it the case that the way the Force works, actually everything you know about the Force is because it's told to you through the viewpoint of two big religious orders that are set in their ways and see the Force the way they want to see it and really just screw anyone over who tries to see it in a different way. And they might not be right. The Force might not work the way they think it does. And um, that's nuance. That's what makes an interesting mystical force. Is the different human interpretations. When I say human, I mean like not literally human, the race human. I mean like characters who we see as human, um, whether they're human or not, from a racial perspective, from the perspective of their species, it's kind of irrelevant. But that's that's what I have to say about that. Kind of a probably kind of a hot take, but that is what people like to say. But in my opinion, a lot of people will say I'm wrong, but a lot of those people won't have read or experienced the fiction that I'm talking about, so they wouldn't know whether I'm right or wrong anyway. So, at the end of the day, I know it sounds a bit gatekeepy, but I honestly think one of the reasons that the best parts of Star Wars, in my opinion, the good novels, um, are not talked about is simply because people haven't bothered to read them, and that's the reality. Um, or maybe it's not, actually. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm joking my ass. Maybe it's just my bias because I love those books as a kid. And that's the whole point of this whole thing that I'm gonna be doing. That's the whole point. I wanna basically what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get the books, I'm gonna start reading them. And I'm gonna start making notes about things that I notice about the books. Also my general thoughts about what's good and bad about them. Now maybe it'll be like a mini I'm not a reviewer, but it'll be like a mini look into an old Legends fans re. It would be either me re reigniting my passion for Star Wars by engaging with the old Legends stuff, or it'll be me realizing that they were never that good. It's all just in my head because as I've gotten older, I have realized that it can definitely 100% be the case with fiction. Um, there's a lot of films I loved when I was a kid, and I went back and I read them. Oh, sorry, watched them, and I'm like, holy shit, this is terrible. How can anyone watch this? I can't think of an example now because I'm on the spot, but might cut it in if I remember. Um, but there are definitely films like that, definitely games like that, um, as well. Definitely games like that. Um, but yeah, this is my disorganized, shitty rant uh, in my dressing gown uh, at 2:30 in the morning, um, thinking about Star Wars and whether or not this continuous war this bloody war. So many egos have been bruised over this Legends versus Disney continuity war the Star Wars fans are fighting on the internet. Or quite frankly, I'm fucking tired of. Um, See whether it was ever worth fighting. I might conclude that Legends was fucking garbage, and the Disney fans were right the whole time. Or maybe I'll conclude that somewhere in between, or maybe Star Wars is just terrible now. We'll see. Obviously, this is just my opinion. Um, I made that sound like I was like some great arbiter of what is good and bad. I'm not. I'm just a guy who hasn't shaved in too long. Um, talking about some books that I really loved when I was a kid. Um, it's probably clear, but I've never done this before. Never made a video like this before, really. I made one video about fucking anime streaming during lockdown, but it was so bad that I took it down. Um, well, I don't think what I was saying was bad. It's just I didn't bother to edit it or anything, so it's just kind of awful to watch. Uh, but I maybe edit this. At the moment, it's 42 minutes long, so nobody's gonna watch that shit. These days, people don't have a fucking. It's the attention span, man. Nobody watches shit. I'm the same. I see a video that's like 3 hours long. I'm like, nope. Apart from that one really good Star Wars video that guy did about Kreia. That one's really amazing. If you're a Star Wars fan and you're considering whether or not you want to get into Legends, I would recommend watching that because that film doesn't film. Well, I guess it is a film. It's like a 3 hour long video. Um, just listen to it like a podcast. It really does nail. Uh, I don't think it nails everything about what's good about KOTOR, but it nails just one of the elements that makes KOTOR so great. Um, and that's really for me. It turns the Force into a nuanced thing that isn't just there's not just the light side and the dark side. There might be other things going on. What about the blues, the pink? What about the pinks, the yellows? Think about the Force as like a spectrum of color. The Jedi and the Sith are blind to anything other than the red or the blue. Maybe there is loads of other colors, you know? And people hate the idea of Grey Jedi, but Grey Jedi are a good thing because the concept of them, anyway. Obviously, they're never like people that you see the Grey Jedi code and shit like that. That was never a thing in Star Wars, alright? That's true. But there were Grey Jedi, as the Jedi distinguished them, which was Jedi who weren't Force users who weren't Sith, who were once Jedi, who no longer follow the Jedi code. So they're not Sith, and they haven't fallen to the dark side, but they aren't Jedi anymore, and that they don't follow the Jedi code, i.e., Kreia. Um, there are other characters like that in Star Wars. Um, you know, but the overall criticism, because here's what I think happened when, because George Lucas was not an amazing writer, and this has to be said. Um, when he wrote the Star Wars universe, he probably actually genuinely thought he was writing the Jedi to be the good guys. But when you really think about the Jedi, when you really think about them, I want you to just sit there for a minute. Let's do a thought exercise. I want you to sit there for a minute and consider that they take children from their families because they essentially have something about them, an immutable characteristic that they can't control, that isn't their fault.
away from them just because they're Force sensitive. And then they brainwash those children into believing that having attachments is wrong and loads of other horrible, psychotic shit. I want you to consider that it's actually possible that a psychopath would make a brilliant Jedi. And I want you to consider that the Jedi, the reason the Sith exist may be because the Jedi continue to fail the children who they force into their order by suppressing their emotions and trying to make them something they're not. People are people. We crave the attention of others, social interaction, and attachment. They're part of what makes us human. No matter how introverted you are, most people have one friend, that one attachment they need, whether it's family or not. We're social creatures. And the Jedi ideology is quite evil, cultish. Are the Sith right? No. The Sith are an opposite extreme created by being forced to engage in one extreme. The children raised by the Jedi don't know anything other than extremes. And, there really is nuance to be explored here, but it's just not explored in new canon. It is a little bit with Ahsoka. A little bit. But that was more of a political issue than an ideological one. And, you know, it's easy to say you wouldn't fall to the dark side, but the way the Jedi would treat you for falling in love, which is never a bad thing, is unacceptable and evil. And I don't think George Lucas intended it to be that way. But that's how it ended up being. And then when authors whose job is to do world building that's good write complex political issues got a hold of Star Wars, it was fertile ground for nuance that had not yet been birthed because of the reasons I've just described. And they pointed at the Jedi Order and they said, wait a minute, that's fucked up. Let's explore that. And that's what gave birth to Luke's Jedi Order, the new Jedi Order, where Luke actually got a bunch of Jedi texts and looked at the way the Jedi Order was before, and he's like, I ain't sure about that, Chief. I don't know if that's acceptable. I don't know if I should brainwash children not have attachments. And this is kind of one of the problems with the new canon, because in the old canon, if you go back to KOTOR, the Jedi Order and KOTOR were even worse than they were in the prequels. They were even more extreme, and the Jedi Order kind of goes through this like character arc of different Jedi, like Revan, for example. I mean, there's other characters, um, like really interesting characters that you just kind of. I mean, me personally, that I really struggled to understand how great they were until I read the expansive the Legends books, because one character that really stuck out to me when I replayed KOTOR was Jolee Bindo. Jolee. When I first played the game as a kid, I was just kind of a boring old guy. I never really listened to anything he said. I was just like skipping through his dialogue because I was a stupid kid. But now when you go back and you listen to his dialogue now, the things he says about the Force, about the Jedi Order, are really thought provoking. And that nuance just did not exist. Just did not exist in films. And it wasn't until writers who, quite frankly, were better at their job than George Lucas got a hold of it and actually examined it and were like, what can we do with this? What is interesting here? Where are the hooks that we can grab onto to really pull apart the meat, to really explore the Jedi and the Sith? And that is what begun with KOTOR, and it's what lots of Star Wars media went on to do from that point onwards. And that's what makes Star Wars great to me, is that nuance. But that didn't exist in the films, which is brings me back to my original point of I think the films are the worst part of Star Wars, even though they could not have begun without it. So yeah, this is 51 minutes long. Probably going to get heavily edited, and it'll probably take me a long time to edit it. But one thing's for sure, I'm definitely going to go through these books. I'm going to begin with the Darth Bane trilogy. And after I'm finished the Darth Bane trilogy, I don't know where I'll go from there. Maybe I'll read Rogue Squadron, but I probably won't. I'll probably read the Han Solo books. I've never actually read those. Then, I do have the Han Solo books up there. I've got Hutt Gambit, Rebel, Dawn, and Paradise Snare, which I haven't read before. And I'm going to also have up there, obviously, I've got the Thrawn trilogy, and I have um, the Darth Bane trilogy. So I'm going to start with those, and then this might take me years to do. But I'm going to do it because I just think it's maybe nobody will watch these, but I think as like a thought experiment, I think someone needs to do it because this kind of cultural war between between the people who like new Star Wars and those who don't, and there's the people like me in the middle who kind of definitely prefer one or the other. In my case, Legends, but I still do like some of the new stuff. I think that there's definitely potential there. Um, kind of. I do think it's an issue that Mandalorian is set before the sequel trilogy and it's kind of building up to the sequel trilogy. I feel like it's a roadblock that's going to be really hard to overcome because those films were bad. And yeah, as a whole video topic its own, I think. But I don't really want to get involved in the whole Legends versus Disney continuity arguments continuously going on the internet because, quite frankly, I dislike both sides quite a bit. I think both sides are making it political when it's not, and I think then you also get the predatory fake news YouTubers who are always like making videos that are like with really shitty sources, so like this terrible website that like nobody uses. It's like, oh, rumors are that Dave Filoni is taking over from the inside, and it's like, Kathleen Kennedy is gonna get fired, and it's like, it never turns out to be fucking true. None of it. You know, it's all shit. They're just farming clicks. They're farming people's hatred of the new Disney continuity, whether it's justified or not. I think the the uh the way the rabid way that people who are like pro Disney continuity like just call everyone who doesn't like the Disney continuity like sexist and all this shit, sexist, homophobic, all this shit, are fucking equally stupid. Like the reason I don't like the new trilogy, the new Star Wars stuff has nothing to do with any of that, mate. You put in as much inclusivity as you want in the new canon. I'm fine with that. Honestly, I love it. I think it's great. Um, I'm all for more gay characters. I'm all for more black characters or characters from any background. Do it. They should do it. Um, it doesn't take anything away from anything that exists before. Like, it's not real life, so have the black characters. I mean, in my opinion, the biggest problem with new continuity and original Legends actually just ain't enough alien characters. There just aren't enough. Too many human characters, in my opinion. Sorry, guys, it's got to be said. Star Wars has a lot of cool races, and you're finna make another human main character? You're gonna make another human main character? You're gonna do that to me? Really? Fuck, man. Sucks. It sucks. But there's a lot. I'll probably go make a whole video again on the fandom or whatever. Uh, in and of itself, uh, kind of the state of it, because I think there is a political war going on. You know, the culture war of the left versus the right, whatever you want to call it. That's going on, where definitely people are making it political. It's not political, guys. It's Star Wars. Okay, yes, Star Wars has political messages within it, but I think the political messages in Star Wars are pretty absolute. Fascism bad. I don't think you're going to find many people on the left or the right who disagree with that, at least in the West. I don't think you're going to find many right wing people from where I'm from, the UK. You got to go pretty fucking far right to straight up Nazism to find anyone who's going to disagree with the overall theme, like the political themes of Star Wars anyway. Um, you know, the whole how freedom dies thing, the whole, you know, something's worth fighting for theme, you know, is it is what it is. That's a big part of Star Wars, you know. Uh, but I don't think realistically, uh, most left wingers or right wingers or wherever you fall in the political spectrum, I personally consider myself to be left leaning. Uh, but you know, it's just one of those things. It's like to me, it's just crazy. I really think the level that it's gotten to is so toxic. Uh, Touching anything Star Wars related on the internet, it's like you got to get your hazmat suit on, right? You know, you gotta get your hazmat suit on. You gotta get your fucking face mask, and on top of that, you need a gas mask. It's like, fuck me. You gotta fucking scrub your brain. You gotta put your rad away in. You gotta get fucking ready, man, because you're walking into some toxic waste. That shit ain't good. It ain't healthy. It's fucking dogmatic as fuck on both sides. There's some shitty behavior on both sides, harassment of actors, things like that. Then you get harassment of like content creators. You get actual people involved with the creation of Star Wars, like saying bad shit about content. It's just fucking shit show out there. It really is. It's fucking war out there, man. It's a fucking war out there. You want to stay indoors, where you don't want to get involved in that shit. But, you know, that again. That's a whole other video topic in and of itself. But I don't like either sides. Obviously, I am technically on a side, in that I prefer Legends, but I would never go on the internet and harass anyone about it. I would never go on the internet and be horrible to someone because they prefer the sequel trilogy. That's fine. Like there's the whole thing where it's like, oh, they're gonna decanonize the sequels. I actually don't believe they should do that. I don't think that's really fair to sequel fans to just decanonize it. Um, just let them have the thing that they like about Star Wars and move on and do something new. That would be my opinion. Just write around the sequel trilogy. That would be what I would do. But you know, there's all those theories online like, oh, they're gonna decanonize it using the world between worlds that's in Rebels. They could do that. There are some good theories that add up, but this is kind of the problem with theorizing with fiction is that you can do anything technically, and people are assuming they're going to do something called good writing. They might not do good writing. It might be terrible and not make any sense. Therefore, your theory that makes sense is pointless because what they're going to do might not be pointless. Might not be logical. So, eh, kind of a moot point, if you ask me. Uh, but yeah, this really just became a ramble. I created 1 hour now. 1 hour I'm on. 1 hour and 20 seconds. That's crazy. I meant to make this like a short 50-minute video. I probably should have scripted it or something, or like at least had an outline for like my thoughts. I've been thinking about this for a long time, as in like a year. And what really, I think the thing that really got me to do it in the end was the Book of Boba Fett. Because I don't want to upset anyone, but I really did not enjoy it. I thought it was really bad. Uh, Personally, I thought it was just boring. I thought Boba Fett did nothing like he's supposed to be a crime lord, but he just becomes a crime lord. People just accept that he's a crime lord. They do basically nothing about it. He's in the palace by himself. He has no guards. Someone should just turn up and kill his ass, but nobody did. So it kind of fell flat in the first episode for me. And then the kind of jumping between the flashbacks and stuff. Shouldn't they have just started with the flashbacks? Just had that be the first couple of episodes, and then just continued from there. Probably that probably would have been better. It still would have sucked. Um, and then there was 2 episodes of The Mandalorian in it, which were, as usual, great. Um, the first one especially, I thought was one of the best episodes of The Mandalorian so far. And then the second one, I think this is my bias for things being the way they were in Legends showing, but I think it would be a real shame if they didn't have Luke go on to change the Jedi Order for the better, because that was really one of the things that he did really well in Legends that made him such a lovable character, and that is that he re-examined the teachings of the Jedi. And it is true that throughout the series, the Jedi Order to slowly reintroduce some of those things from the prequel Jedi Order, because it turns out that some of the stuff that Luke had, like some of the liberties that Luke had, wanted to introduce, just were not realistic, so they had to take them, get rid of them. But a lot of things, like Jedi being allowed to use blasters if they wanted to, Jedi being able to wear whatever clothes they wanted to, Jedi being allowed to marry, Jedi being able to do all these things they weren't allowed to do before. And you know, I'm a pretty big optimist. Well, I don't really know. I can't really say I'm an optimist or not. Probably a lot of people disagree with that statement, so I'm not going to say it. I just hear my friends laughing in the background. But I do believe in general that people are good overall. They want to be good, at least. And there's nuance to everything. It's not just a good or bad situation. But I think love makes people stronger. And I think that from the perspective of the Force and Star Wars, being in love, having a wife or a husband or whatever, it can cause complications that could cause you to fall to the dark side. Like, can cause, obviously, it's a very emotional thing, being in love, and bad things happening to people you love can cause very intense emotional reactions in people, and that's just part of being human. But the Jedi are thought to be wise beyond their emotions. Doesn't mean they're not shouldn't be. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be allowed to feel them. And I think that just what does that say from a thematic perspective? If you're just going to say, "Oh yeah, sorry, you're not allowed attachments," what does that say to people? What does that teach them? I think the reality is, it would be far more poignant, far more interesting from a thematic perspective if you created a Jedi Order where people are allowed to love and in kind of explored the positives and negatives of that. You know, love can be a powerful thing. It can compel people to do good things and bad things. And I think that that should be explored. It shouldn't be treated as just because there's a risk that people can do bad things that it shouldn't be allowed at all. I think that it's much more interesting uh, if Luke allows it. I'm not saying. A lot of people are saying shit like, "Oh, Mara Jade has to turn up, and Luke has to marry Mara Jade, and all this stuff that happened in Legends." That doesn't have to happen, but I do think that it would be a massive shame if they didn't have Luke reintroduce a lot of the things that he did in Legends. Maybe again, that's just my bias, but I think that really is the only logical way to go, because from a writing perspective, because it just introduces the most interesting things to explore. And you know, I think the whole scene, spoilers, um, for the Book of Boba Fett, you have one, two, three, right? Spoiler warning over. In the Book of Boba Fett, Luke asks Grogu whether he wants the chainmail, Beskar chainmail that Din made for him, or the lightsaber, which is Yoda's lightsaber. And if he chooses the chainmail, he refuses to give up his attachments to Din, and therefore can't be a Jedi. Or if he chooses the lightsaber, that will symbolize him basically giving up his attachment to Din and continuing on with his Jedi training. Now, I hate this. I think it's terrible. I think it's a massive step back. I think it's stupid and hypocritical because Luke has attachments. Luke has his attachment to Leia, which he would never give up. He has his attachment to Han, which he'd probably, at least by Legend standards, definitely never give up. And his attachments to them are what allowed him to take on Vader for the first time. There's a lot of reasons that Luke's attachments were a good thing, and not a bad thing, and his refusal to accept the Jedi teaching of giving up one's attachments was a good thing. That's the point. The point is that refusing to have attachments was a failing, a flaw of the Jedi Order in the prequel era, and if they don't continue that story arc onwards to its conclusion of just allowing it in the Jedi Order, I just feel like what's the point? That would be a failing, in my opinion. That would be a bad thing. This is just my opinion, of course. But I really do think that I think it's possible because obviously he chooses the best guy and he goes back to Din, right? I think it's possible that Grogu choosing the best guy will make Luke realize that he lost out on a possible student when he could have just accepted their attachments and stuff like that. You could have just accepted that it's fine for Jedi to have attachments. Now, another problem I had with it is just like, where the hell did his knowledge of the Jedi Order come from? Because like in Legends, there's a long period where Luke is like rediscovering the lost knowledge of the Jedi. Because you have to understand, there weren't any Jedi for a long time, and the only people who taught him were Yoda and the Force Ghost of Bam, obviously, of Obi-Wan. And there was a lot he had to learn that he could. There was no one to teach him. So he spent a long time learning the ways of the Jedi. Before starting up his new Jedi Order. I don't know if that's happened here. It's not clear. He seems to know the ways of the Jedi, but he didn't in the films. Like he decidedly did not know, and that was a good thing because it allowed a rediscovery of the Jedi, one that wasn't tainted by thousands of years of dogma. Basically, it was the reset that the Jedi Order needed to become better, a better version of itself with Luke, and I don't think that's where they're going to go, but we'll see. It is possible that that's where it will go, and if that's where it goes, I'll be very happy to see it. But I don't think it will. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about. Anyway, I don't know how I feel about the ending of that Mandalorian arc, but I don't know how I feel about where new continuity is going overall. But I did see some news. I don't know. I just saw it in passing whether or not they'd be trying to adapt the Thrawn trilogy, but I just don't think that'll work at all. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think that's gonna work at all. But there's so many reasons why. I could go into why, but I won't, because I'll be going on for another hour. But I just don't think it's gonna happen. And if it happens, it's gonna be bad. And Disney will never touch the Yuuzhan because they're too dark. They're too messed up. The Yuuzhan are really dark, like really dark and really messed up, and Disney don't even want to show blood on the end of a spear when someone gets stabbed. So I really don't think and obviously the Isla Wrong are a big part of Thrawn trilogy and Thrawn's motivation as a villain. So we'll have to see. But I'm gonna end the video here. I'll probably heavily edit it. Maybe I won't. I might upload a version that's unedited, and I might upload a version that is edited and easier to consume. I don't know. We will see. Um, but yeah, this is my first Star Wars vlog. Um, it's probably terrible and unwatchable. I probably should have worn a shirt under my dressing gown, but I was gonna go to bed. I was actually in bed, and I couldn't sleep. Uh, and I had this idea that's been buzzing around my brain forever. I don't know if other people who do creative things, because I do writing mostly for creative purposes, have these ideas that buzz around their skull and they keep them in there for a long time till eventually they just gotta come out. And this was the supernova. This was the fuck it's gotta come out moment. Uh, I could not sleep. This idea just would not leave my brain. So I have to release it. I have to release it into the wild, whether it'll be shit or not. It must be released from my brain if I'm to sleep. So in the uh, in the interest of basic human bodily functions such as sleeping, uh, I've made this video, recorded it at least. I will probably edit it, maybe. We will see. I've not decided. I'm starting to get tired now, so it's done its job. Uh, yeah. I want to finish the video by saying a disclaimer of sorts. I might redo this later. If I suddenly change clothes or something, that'll be why. Or my beard changes or something, that'll be why. I this series is not intended to like attack anyone's opinions on Star Wars or whatever. I want to say if you like new Star Wars, that's great. Honestly, I'm happy for you. That's a good thing. And don't let anyone tell you that's a bad thing. Um, I think there is an argument to be made that you know good art should prevail over whatever. But who's to say what good is good art and bad art? Um, just because I don't personally like new Star Wars stuff, well, it's hard to say. In general, don't like it. Um, doesn't mean it's bad, right? If you like Star Wars, like it. Don't let anyone tell you whether you should or shouldn't like it. Um, I do think there's a distinction. Personally, think there's a distinction to be made between enjoyment and quality. But that's like a rabbit hole, and I may make a video on that one day. A rabbit hole where you just can keep going down. It's just a spiral that just keeps going. Um, but you know, at the end of the day, if you enjoy it and you watch this video and you see me ripping in something you like, it's just my opinion. All right, don't get upset by it. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. Feel free to comment or whatever about why you don't like it. Um, if you want to get back at me or something, if it makes you feel better, go ahead. I can take it. Trust me. Um, go ahead and roast me. I don't give a shit. But yeah, that's my disclaimer. I don't want to upset anyone with this video, especially since I mentioned this kind of goes back to me mentioning the toxic parts of the community. Um, the Star Wars community is very toxic right now. It's not very pleasant. It's full of people being horrible, personal attacks about, at the end of the day, about fictional characters don't really matter. And it's hell out there. It's shit on both sides. And although I'm firmly on one side, not the other, I refuse to engage in a lot of the behaviors of the side I'm on. I don't want to attack anyone based on their opinions about Star Wars. I don't want to be that toxic, shitty fan who hates other people. I don't hate anyone because of their Star Wars opinion. If you don't like it, if you were my friend, I'd probably take the mick out of you about it. We'd probably joke about it. You'd probably take the piss out of me about liking, oh, Shitty Legends is like 1 in 10 books is good, or something like that. That's just, it's just a joke. It's whatever. It's not a big deal, right? Um, and if you do end up watching this and you are one of those toxic fans on either side, um, I challenge you to think about whether it's a good thing for Star Wars, whether it's a good thing for you, whether it's a good thing for the world in general that you go on the internet and fucking argue with people about stuff that really doesn't matter. Um, because I understand people get caught up in something they're passionate about. I understand that. But at the end of the day, Legends isn't going anywhere. Disney have even started to reprint the Legends books um, under the label Legends. They've been doing that for quite a while, to my knowledge. So it ain't going anywhere. They're definitely. I know there's a lot of accusations of Disney trying to bury the old canon. I don't think that's true. Uh, Not when Disney can make so much money off of it, quite frankly. And you know, if you don't like new canon, that's fine. Don't engage with it. Ignore it. Pretend it doesn't exist. And reread the books or replay the game that you loved or look at the difference between the wiki entries on Legends and Canon because that shit's crazy. On Wikipedia, just go for it. Do whatever you like about Star Wars. Do what you like. Uh, you don't have to engage with the new Star Wars. You don't have to. Just I didn't do that for years, and maybe that's why I'm not engaged in this toxicity like other people are. But you know, I oh sorry, my nose is fucking running. I I really think people should really consider their place in it. I think a lot of people got caught up in it. It's kind of become habitual to lash out. It's not a big deal. It's not real life. And you know, I've gone into this before earlier in the video. I personally don't think that Legends had much more steam in it anyway. I think it was coming to its natural conclusion, and I think Disney maybe ended it a bit early, but do you really need to? Is that really a big deal? I don't think it is. I don't think it's a big deal. I think is it really worth being an asshole about? It's not really. I don't think it is. Again, it's just my opinion. I'm just some guy. You probably won't even watch the video anyway. Um, I'm just a guy who liked Star Wars a lot for a long time, and then for a long time really didn't, and now I'm starting to like it again because of the Mandalorian, which says a lot. That says a bit about new canon, no matter what no matter what you say. At the end of the day, it has potential. It brought me back to Star Wars, so it does deserve recognition for that. I think maybe, yeah. I'm falling asleep now, so officially gonna end it. That was my disclaimer. The point was do not want to I do not want to contribute to the toxicity that is going on in the community. And if you are part of the toxicity that's going on in the community, I want you to consider that I think it's possible that both sides have wormed their ways into echo chambers through various content creators and the kind of people they follow. And I think, especially on the political side, where it's become somehow a political thing, Star Wars has somehow become a political thing. God knows how. Um, where like it's a left wing versus a right wing thing. To consider that if you're in that situation, if you're on the left, most people who like don't like new stuff do not dislike it because the main character is a woman. Most of them do not dislike it because um there's a gay or black character or something that you probably have been told or probably believe. Yes, there's probably a vocal minority on the right who do think that, but the vast majority of them, I guarantee you, dislike the dislike the new canon because of writing issues. I'm not saying, even going to say bad writing. Issues they have with the writing is what I'm going to say. And if you're on the right, I want you to consider the the films were just bad because they were poorly written, and they're not bad because people tried to force the gender or sexuality of characters to bend the writing to make it bad. I don't think that's what happened. I think whether the main character in this new trilogy had been a man or whatever, or it could have been a white guy. All the characters could have been white guys, and it still would have been a terrible film. It still would have been bad. So you know, there's a lot of rhetoric on both sides about the woke stuff, about everyone who dislikes Legends and dislikes new stuff is like a right wing person who like loves who hates all the like all the pot characters and all this stuff. It's possible, in my opinion, both sides have worked themselves into echo chambers. It's become overly political. I think a vocal minority on both sides is dominating the viewpoint of either side. Um, I want you to consider that maybe your perceptions are skewed, uh, and to consider whether or not it's even worth arguing about. Quite frankly, um, but hey, that's my disclaimer. Don't want to be toxic. If you are part of the toxic community, just think about it a bit. Just think about it. Whether it really matters. I'm probably repeating myself now. Um, this is all off the top of my head. None of this is scripted. This is just random Star Wars shit, diarrhea, mental diarrhea, verbal diarrhea. Uh, I've got very dry throat. Uh, I need a drink. So I'm gonna end it here. Definitely ending it here. I think I've said it like 5 times now. I'm definitely ending it here. All right. This is probably terrible. Knowing me after like an hour, it's probably got like all sorts of problems. Like it's probably corrupted. It's probably not even recording my voice. That'd suck ass. But yeah.